Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Prisoner Hershel, who is going to be coming to the RTS as the new monthly character for October. Now visually on the right hand side we have actually had a Prisoner Hershel I think in the game once before, at least in the kind of orange jumpsuit. I don't know about fully armoured up. It looks like he's going to be a fast character. He has got a non-attached weapon, that very little tiny kitchen like knife from the canteen, I don't know, in the prison, trying to make up a little story here. On the left hand side we do have his art in full detail. We see a weapon in his hands here, a little bit better on the visuals. That weapon no doubt will be coming out, and we see the prison kind of burning in the background. I recognize one of the prison towers from the movies, and also, well, not the movies, the TV show and the comics, but yeah. If we look at his stats, at level 1600, limit break 3, he is going to have 52,347 attack, 18,695 defense, and 22,434 HP. He is going to be a fast character, like I said. He is going to be of the support role, so that does mean he's going to be pretty good when against teams that kind of counter things like attack role and control role, so on and so forth. Of course, he's going to be a Gold Mythic, and he's going to be another member joining the Prisoner's Allegiance. Now, the first thing we're going to look at with Prisoner Hershel is going to be the Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Breakout. It is a 55 AP cost rush, so pretty fast for what looks like an attack team character based on his stats. Remove all positive status effects from a line of enemies, deal 1,500% damage, plus 250% for each Prisoner Allegiance teammate to that line of enemies, stun a random enemy for the rest of combat. This is actually really good. I've heard people saying we need more deal damage to be accessible for people who are free to play on characters that are accessible, and this looks like it's going to be what people want. 1,500% damage is massive. It is to a line of enemies too, and that scales up quite drastically if you use other Prisoner Allegiance teammates. And you can easily just use like Maggie Lead just to get the counter damage reduction, or maybe you want to use someone else. You could use I think Prisoner Glenn does actually have deal damage as well. I'm not sure about the combo between some of these teams. You could have picked up Rick. There are a bunch of Prisoner characters now, so there's a bit more potential. Also, there is of course Axel from last month's event, so you have a bit more of an accessible character working with another accessible character. Again, not too bad. The deal damage is nice. He should be able to take out both these enemies because it's a deal damage to a line, extra damage with prisoner characters. If those enemies both get taken out, that stun should stun somebody else, so it could potentially take down 2, stun someone else, and then you effectively would have a maximum of 2 characters to deal with, which is actually pretty good. Don't forget, it does also remove all positive status effects, so if anyone's got like Halo on them, you would remove that first. However, if they're a character that applies Halo to themselves when taken out, for instance, a Halo Specialist, it doesn't work that way. Things like that, they'll still come back, obviously. Okay, so here we are on turn 1, and I'm just using the Adrenaline Rush just to show you how it works. I'm using Clementine as a non-leader. This is just to show you that the halos that are applied to Luke and Clementine will get removed with this Adrenaline Rush. And also we have Regina as the leader, just to show you there isn't going to be like some drastic damage reduction on this Adrenaline Rush because it is a deal damage. We'll do the Adrenaline Rush. It removes the halo and any other buffs first. The characters get taken out and they are down for the count. Now I have got characters in the team that apply crosshairs, so obviously those characters would be decapped in this case because they haven't got any decap resistance. And like I said, when you take out the 2 characters, that stun for the rest of combat goes on to one of the remaining characters that are alive, and in this case it would be Regina. She is stunned for the rest of combat. You can get this Adrenaline Rush to go very quickly with the right setup. Obviously you do need to not take control role characters against Regina. That's why I've got Wayland here instead of the standard Laura. But yeah, the nuke potential is high. There is not another prison character here, so there's not going to be the boost. But obviously the more prisoner characters you use, extra 250% per prisoner, which is actually pretty cool. Now you might have noticed there was an insane attack buff on Hershel. We will check out later on in his kit how that is happening, but that is potentially amazing. Like I said, we'll check that out later. We're going to look at the upgrades here though on his Adrenaline Rush, and you can see at grade 3 he gets an upgrade where he removes all positive status effects from a line of enemies. This is obviously massive. This includes defense buffs, halo, anything that could potentially either reduce the damage he's going to do or enable the enemy to actually like come back to life if he takes them out. And obviously if someone's got something like decap resistance, someone like Nor, who applies that to herself, and they also have crosshairs at the same time, normally they'd not get decapped in that situation. Well, this would make it so they did, because you'd be removing the decap resistance and then the crosshairs would then be applied upon takedown to make it so they couldn't be picked up. Pretty cool. At grade 5, there's going to be another upgrade where it's 250% damage for each prisoner allegiance teammate. This has very high potential. Obviously, building a team with particular, like, only a handful of characters can be difficult sometimes. It could be worth it, but because of that massive buff that we saw, there could be potential other team-ups that would work better, because he had a massive attack buff, as you might have noticed. At Limit Break 2, he gets an upgrade where he stuns a random enemy for the rest of combat. I don't think there's any more, there is not. Yeah, but that's really good, because like I showed, when he takes down the 2 enemies in a line, or if you want to target the leader for whatever reason, if there's only 2 characters live and you think the leader's the one to do, the other character or one of the remaining characters would get taken out, or at least, nullified with the stun for the rest of combat. There can be downsides to this. There can be characters that get defense while stunned, and things like removing positive status effects would not actually bypass this. But still, I think it's pretty good just for control. A double takedown and potential nullification of another character for the rest of combat, but even if it's just for one turn, is really, really useful in just having a better win percentage. It's pretty much as simple as that. So his Adrenaline Rush so far is pretty nice. We'll see what else he has in his kit to see what kind of other damage amplification he's going to get to boost this potential rush damage up, because like I've always said, with deal damage, it can't crit, so they need boost, but he has quite a nice specialist skill for that. Let's see what else he's got. Now the next thing we're going to look at is going to be the signature move, and it is called Uprising. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 1 turn, number of uses unlimited, remove 100% bonus HP from a line of enemies, and apply 100% heal reduction to them for 2 turns, deal 1500% damage to that line of enemies, daze an enemy other than the primary target for the rest of combat. It's basically his Adrenaline Rush again, but he's removing bonus HP first instead of every single, positive effect. Obviously, there is a downside here. If they have got Halo, heal reduction does not stop them from being revived. This is worth noting. But if they haven't got Halo and they're taken out, they won't be able to get revived for 2 turns unless they're already, they've got crosshairs on them, then they would obviously be down for the count. And then dazing a random enemy for the rest of combat is obviously nice. It's not stun, but daze generally is nice off of turn 1 just because it will stop people from using their signature moves, and it's not the target that you actually focus, the initial target. It could potentially go to the secondary target that you hit in the line. We'll try and test that out, but it should hopefully go to someone who's still alive. But face value, this looks really good. It's not going to get the kind of amplification potential just based on the Adrenaline Rush having prisoner teammates, but otherwise it looks pretty heavy hitting regardless. Okay, so here we are off of turn 1, and we are going to use the signature move against the bottom line. Before I do that, I'm just going to explain these characters do have Halo on them, so the 100% heal reduction is not going to keep them down. However, they also do have crosshairs, which bypasses Halo and will make them get decapped. But you see, we have got daze on Regina, but what should happen is she should get dazed for the rest of combat. Now, I'm going to see which one of these 2 characters has a debilitating status effect. It is the one at the back, so that's the one we're going to target because we do have the specialist skill, which gives us improved damage against debilitating status effects. I'll use the signature move. It'll take out the line. As you see, they should be decapped as well. And as you can see on Regina, she is now dazed for the rest of combat. So it will go to another enemy that is not the targeted 2, or at least the targeted line. There is a chance that it could potentially go to the one at the front. I did test it a few times and I didn't notice it actually apply. Not apply, sorry, should I say, to Regina. But there is a potential chance that it could be applied to the other character in the line. But it really depends on how the game kind of sees those characters. Are they still alive, or are they already taken out? But regardless, the chance of it going to the other character seems pretty good. I did it 5 times and it always went to Regina. and the damage doesn't look too bad. And there's that 500% attack buff again. Let's check that out in a little bit later, but that looks juicy. Going into the upgrades on the signature move, you can see at grade 2 it gets an upgrade where it dazes an enemy other than the primary target for the rest of combat. At grade 4 it gets plus 500% damage, so it goes from 1000% damage to a line of enemies up to 1500% damage to a line of enemies. Obviously very nice. At limit break 1 it gets an upgrade where it removes 100% bonus HP from a line of enemies and applies 100% heal reduction to them for 2 turns. This is going to be good against quite a lot of characters like Phineas, Nor, ones that apply bonus HP early on in the fight will take damage. Obviously you're not going to be doing trait damage there, so your come up mods will be important. And then at limit break 3 we get the standard, well kind of standard, -1 to starting cooldown. I would say you do want to try and get this character fully maxed out. The potential of their damage output is actually really good. 1500% damage off of turn 1, and then you could command rush them the same turn and do 1500% damage to the other line of enemies. So much damage potential, it's actually kind of crazy. And yeah, I think kind of nuclear levels with Hershel, just based on how his rush looks and how his signature looks. But I want to see how that attack buff works. I want to see, is it getting applied after he's doing the damage? I haven't noticed it before, but we'll have to see. But so much potential damage output here. You will have to scale him quite high. Debilitating status effects are going to be important because they will amplify his damage because of his specialist skill. But otherwise, it looks really solid so far when it comes to his Adrenaline Rush and his signature move. Now, to see how his entire kit comes together, we will be checking out his mythic abilities. These are his passive skills, of course. He is, of course, a support character, so he will be having Cunning as an upgrade here. When attacking or being attacked, 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. He will not get this with Adrenaline Rush. He will not get this with his signature move. I see this mainly as he's not a control role and he's not an attack role, you know, a damage role. Otherwise, he would be getting things like controlled in some way by the defense. Now, you will have to be very aware of the fact that they could be having a princess on defense, but you can obviously bypass that with some focus. That can be a way to bypass that taunt. The next one's called Persons of Interest. At the start of each turn, 100% chance with equal odds to impair or apply crosshairs to 4 enemies for 4 turns. That's how those crosshairs were going down on the enemies that you saw. But impair is just as good. You know, crosshairs you could argue maybe is better, but both are pretty good. You can't really, we're not going to be too bothered about which one goes down. But crosshairs, when you obviously take out enemies, they're going to stay down. Probably like the better one. But it's at the start of each turn, not the wave. So if it doesn't happen off of turn 1, you can make it happen off of turn 2, so on and so forth. Crosshairs can come in, and the continuation of the impair is going to be nuts. That's actually going to be really crazy. And because of this, I will be completely honest, because of this, I can see him being sneakily used behind a human shield on a defense team, where you can just impair potentially the entire attack team, or like 4 characters on the attack team. Because this doesn't say when on an attack team, although that might get changed, this is an early kind of like visual on his kit. But if it is going to remain as this, I could see people being very sneaky and using him on defense, because that's a lot of control every turn and potential crosshairs for permanent takedowns. The next one's called Stick to the Plan. At the start of each wave, 100% chance all teammates get focus and camouflage for the rest of combat. So that's focus dealt with, and again, that's really good for defense teams. So him being behind a human shield could be nasty. Him being a defense team kind of like, you know, cheesy option is actually going to be crazy. I can see that being really potentially devastating, honestly. If Persons of Interest doesn't get changed to on attack teams only, yeah, it's going to be brutal. The last one is called Anarchy Reigns. At the start of each turn, this fighter gets 50% attack for 1 turn for each positive and negative effect on the enemy. Hershel applies for himself, so that should be 200% attack. And then obviously if you have other characters in your team applying negative effects, and I had that, and obviously if you've got the defense team applying positive effects like Halo, like a full team Halo, means he's getting a 250% attack buff additional to what he's already got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to put 5 characters on the defense team and just see the kind of buff he can get off of turn 1 with, let's say, just a basic team. I'm not going to use anything too crazy, and see how much attack buff Hershel can get off of turn 1, because it's at the start of each turn, so he's getting this for his first turn signature move. So I put this team together, as you can see, and now his attack buff is 650%, because obviously we have applied crosshairs to one more enemy, maybe daze to another enemy, but definitely there's going to be halo on someone that hasn't got it, someone who has a 40% defense buff, as you can see. We are going to get a little bit more of an attack buff here. I'll use the signature move against the bottom line again. As you can see, we aren't going to remove the negative effect, and we haven't applied crosshairs to Luke, but I can do a command rush turn 1, and then we will remove the positive effects up here. And as long as one of your other characters has some sort of offense, you potentially could take down this character. I can't remember if Frontier Clementine has deal damage on her signature move or not. If she doesn't, she's not going to be able to take down this character. So you having someone like Ruben in the team, maybe a pretty good one, or even, like I said, someone as basic as Prisoner Glenn would give Hershel a buff, and also he does deal damage. I'm not sure if she's going to be enough. She is. Simple as that. Going straight into the upgrades on the passives, you can see at grade 1, he gets the first half of Persons of Interest. At the start of each turn, 50% chance with equal odds to impair or apply crosshairs to 4 enemies for 4 turns. At grade 2, he gets the first half of Cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger any weapon effects and walker effects. This is most likely when it's going to get attacked. It's not really going to be that useful, so I wouldn't really upgrade that. At grade 3, he gets Persons of Interest Part 2. At the start of each turn, another 50% chance, making 100% total with equal odds to impair or apply crosshairs to 4 enemies for 4 turns. This, remember, at the beginning of every single turn. Brutal on attack or defense, I think. And then at grade 4, you can see he gets the first half of Stick to the Plan. At the start of each wave, 50% chance all teammates get focus and camouflage for the rest of combat. It isn't even a turn-based thing. Rest of combat, it will have to be stolen away. And there are not too many cleansers on defense teams that will take away focus and camouflage too early on in the fight. Generally, it has to go to their turn. So that first turn, you do get a lot of new kid potential there. Then at grade 5, you'll get the first half of Anarchy Reigns. At the start of each turn, this fighter gets 20% attack for 1 turn for each positive and negative status effects on the enemy team. Just that alone would be crazy. 20% would be mad. But obviously that gets buffed up quite a bit when we go into limit breaks. Limit break 1, Cunning 2 comes in when attacking or being attacked. Now it's going to be 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. At limit break 2, Stick to the Plan 2 comes in. At the start of each wave, it's going to be now 100% chance all teammates get focus and camouflage for the rest of combat. Very nice. Attack or defense, this is good. Like I said, he's a sneaky pick for a defense team, I think. And then at limit break 3, Anarchy Reigns 2 comes in, where at the start of each turn, this fighter gets a further 30%, making it 50% attack for 1 turn for each positive and negative effect on the enemy team. And these stack together and will obviously give him a massive buff. They do not stack with anyone else's buffs. For anyone, I got random PMs from people about, you know, do these buffs stack between Adam and Ellen? No, of course not. They're from the same kind of source. If anything that's from a leader skill, a signature move, a rush, or a passive, it's all the same. But if there's somehow going to be another buff from, like, a, let's say, a specialist skill, which is not going to be the case for Hershel, but he does have damage amplification there, then it would stack. This is going to overwrite any other attack buff pretty much for Hershel, the ones he's going to receive. But this will generally be massively high, and you can build a team that actually is going to apply massive amounts of negative effects. His team actually with someone like Eva and Ghost would be really good because she gets extra damage based on how many negative effects there are. So they could team up really nicely. Obviously, you can't use Eva and Ghost against Regina teams so well, so you're going to have to think of something else there. But against other teams, that team up should actually be really, really nice. But yeah, brutal kit, very, very nice when it comes to his passives. And like I said, I think he's going to be an annoyingly sneaky pick on defense team. You've got a human shield, maybe 2, maybe like bodyguards. You've got to hide him for like turn 2, and then basically he's going to get that first turn nuke, potentially another nuke on turn 2. Depends on the kind of AP gain he's going to get. He's got 55 AP cost rush. On a defense team, that's all he needs. So yeah, really, really nice indeed. I think his kit is amazing. I'm going to be completely honest, and it only gets better with the specialist skill. Because if that attack buff was not enough, he's going to have even bigger damage amplification with the specialist skill. And it's Cutthroat too. This works so well with deal damage in general. And there's been so many good characters in the past that have been deal damage characters and had Cutthroat get amplification based on the fact that if someone has a debilitating status effect, they deal extra damage. And it says, whenever this fighter deals damage to a fighter that is under the effect of a debilitating status, they will deal 100% extra damage. It's pretty much as simple as that. 100% extra doesn't sound like a lot when he's got 600% attack buff, but these do stack. So what will happen is, let's say he hits for 100k, then he has a 500% buff. Effectively, that would be like a 600k hit, and then the 100% boost will come in, making it 1.2 million. Now, obviously, these teams have mad defenses and stuff like that, but he needs as much stack as possible. He'll still hit him for like 700k in those clips that you saw before, which is obviously going to be pretty, good against most teams on defense. And yeah, very nice. And then obviously, if you have other prisoner characters, his Adrenaline Rush will hit for higher. I don't necessarily think you need it though, as long as you've got a lot of effects being applied. That buff and this Cutthroat 2 is good enough. Just make sure you check the buffs on the defense team. You need to have someone adding some debilitating, because Hershel's one is RNG. Crosshairs is the one you probably would prefer to be applied, but Crosshairs did not make Cutthroat to apply. So you need to have at least someone else applying like 2 or 3, let's say in pairs or something like that. I know we did have Wendy, and we did have a Davey that had lots of impair. So potentially team ups there, or characters that add anything that's debilitating will give him the bonus damage output. Just make sure it's the targeted one that he hits if it's in a line of enemies, and then it should do the damage to them both, generally speaking. But it might not work like that. It might be like it has to be on the character that he's dealing damage to. It's pretty easy to test, but it's as simple as that though. Cutthroat 2 is very, very good in my opinion. Now we can have a look at the weapon, but there is nothing here. He just needs lots of attack. AP on attack isn't really going to be needed because he's got such a quick Adrenaline Rush. Maybe you could go with some AP gain on the last slot. I think you basically want to treat his weapon exactly as you would have treated Sophia's weapon. Things like double attack don't work. Nothing that has anything that says when attacking and then a potential outcome, like 60% potential outcome. They will never work with potential, Prisoner Hershel's signature move or Adrenaline Rush. You'll only work with his basic attacks, not worth it. So you're better off going with things that could boost. I think there was it randomly like a revive weapon that came out with fast characters recently? And that would be absolutely amazing in his hands, obviously. If you have characters taken out, he could potentially revive. Anything that is when taking out enemies or when using your Adrenaline Rush. I think there's been weapons where it's like boosting Adrenaline Rush damage. Some crazy builds. The Armory probably won't be able to provide you with like a proper top tier weapon. You'll have to work on one that you have received. But if you have to go with an Armory weapon, getting him to 55% attack is probably the priority, because that's the biggest boost he's going to get, and that will stack and multiply with that buff he gets with his specialist skill. Big damage output, pretty much as simple as that. So this is Prisoner Hershel, and I think it's safe to say he may be the best attacking character to ever be released as a free-to-play monthly release. I think the best free-to-play defense character was probably Jesus back in the S-Class era. This character is undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best attack character that I've ever seen. If anyone has any other thoughts on potential great attack characters that have been released free-to-play, the potential for his damage output is insane. And he's meta-relevant because he does do damage against Regina teams. And obviously they will not be reduced. He can't be controlled by Regina or anything like that. There's no downside for using him because he's not off the control role. Really, really nice. Very useful for everybody. But I think free-to-play will be very happy with this character for sure. Do tell me your thoughts though in the comments down below about Prisoner Hershel. Will you be using him with other prisoner characters? Will Maggie make an appearance in your team? Let me know your thoughts. Like I say, I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.